Commander Tay found himself staring at the holographic display with growing concern. The new species from planet Terra was classified as a Class 12 Death World inhabitant, something unprecedented in Confederation records. Surely these readings are exaggerated, he told Science Officer Jin, who nervously adjusted her uniform. The command deck of the Confederation flagship Eternal Dawn hummed with tense activity. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, but Tay noticed the subtle signs of unease. Quick glances at the main display, hushed conversations that stopped when superiors approached. The massive view screen showed a blue-green planet hanging against the void, seemingly peaceful, despite its deadly classification. "The data is accurate, Commander," Jin replied, her slender fingers dancing across the control panel to bring up detailed scans. "I've triple-checked everything. These humans evolved on a world with extreme gravity, atmospheric toxins and predators that would make our most hardened warriors tremble." Tay's four-fingered hand brushed across his jawline, feeling the ceremonial scars from his coming-of-age trials. As a member of the Galactic Confederation's elite vanguard, he had faced threats across 17 star systems. Nothing had prepared him for these readings. "Look at their biology," Jin continued, enlarging a scan of human anatomy. "Their skeletal structure is ridiculously dense. Their skin contains metals. They breathe oxygen, a corrosive gas. Their blood contains iron that would poison most species, and their world has 60% higher gravity than our homeworld." "Yet they've achieved spaceflight?" Tay asked, mandibles clicking with disbelief. "Advanced spaceflight," confirmed communications. Officer Bay joining the conversation. His scaled skin reflected the blue light of the displays. "Their ships are primitive by our standards, but remarkably durable. They've established colonies on planets we'd consider uninhabitable." Tay studied the footage of humans moving about. Their settlements. They seemed so fragile compared to the armored bodies of Confederation species. Yet something about their easy movements in what should be crushing gravity made him uneasy. "The diplomatic team has made contact," Bay reported. "The humans call themselves the Terran Alliance. They're requesting information about our presence in their system." "Standard protocol," Tay ordered. "Inform them of Confederation authority and their options for submission or protectorate status." The next 3 planetary rotations brought increasingly tense exchanges. The humans' responses became shorter, their tone less cooperative. Finally, the message that changed everything arrived. "Confederation vessel, this is Terran Defense Force Command. Your claims of authority are rejected. We have no interest in submission or protectorate status. Withdraw from Terran space within 48 hours, or we will consider your presence an act of aggression." The command deck fell silent. "They're threatening us," Officer Han said, breaking the silence with a nervous laugh. "Their ships are barely interplanetary. Our weapon systems outclass theirs by centuries." Tay felt cold certainty settle in his chest. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. How dangerous could these soft-skinned bipeds truly be? "Prepare a strike force," he ordered. "We'll land at their largest military installation. Show of force protocol. Minimum casualties, maximum impact." As Tay boarded the assault craft with his elite squadron, he dismissed the nagging concern in his mind. The 30 soldiers under his command represented the finest warriors of 6 different species. Each evolved for combat in their own environments. Their powered armor hummed with energy fields, and their weapons could level small buildings. "Remember," he told his troops, "these creatures evolved on a death world. They may be physically stronger than they appear, but they lack our technology and tactical experience. Use restraint where possible." The assault craft entered Terra's atmosphere with a fiery trail. Tay felt the increased gravity immediately as they descended, a constant pressure that made his movements sluggish despite his power-assisted armor. "Contact in 30 seconds, announced the pilot. "Human defense forces detected. Minimal resistance expected." The craft landed with a heavy thud on the military base's landing pad. Doors slid open, and Tay led his forces into formation, weapons raised but not firing, the standard intimidation protocol that had worked on countless worlds. The answer to his question about human capabilities came swiftly as his elite squadron encountered their first human soldiers. The base alarm had barely finished sounding when the defenders appeared, without powered armor. wearing only what appeared to be fabric coverings and light protective plates. "Stand down and surrender your facility," Tay's translator boomed across the landing area. The humans didn't respond verbally. Instead, they did something that violated every combat doctrine in Confederation tactical guides. The Terrans didn't take cover as expected. They charged forward, weapons blazing, closing the distance with alarming speed, despite the projectiles slamming into their bodies. "Fall back to defensive positions," Tay ordered, stunned by the humans' reckless advance. More shocking than their charge was their resilience. A human soldier took 3 direct hits to the torso, wounds that would instantly incapacitate any sensible species, yet continued advancing, firing with deadly accuracy. Another lost an entire limb to energy fire, but switched weapons one-handed and continued fighting. "They're not stopping," screamed Officer Rin before a human tackled him, the creature's raw strength cracking his armor, despite the planet's crushing gravity that should have slowed them down. As his forces retreated in disarray toward the assault craft, Tay realized with growing horror that everything in the reports had been true. Worse, they had underestimated these Deathworlders. The humans fought with a savagery he'd never witnessed, continuing despite injuries that should have been immediately fatal. "Emergency extraction," he ordered into his comm unit as a projectile shattered his armor's shoulder joint. The pain was excruciating, but Tay maintained formation, covering his troops' retreat. From the assault craft's viewport, Tay watched the humans securing their base, moving with efficient purpose despite their wounds. He had never ordered a retreat so quickly in his distinguished career. "Commander," Jin's voice came through his comm, "the diplomatic team is requesting an update." Tay stared at the human facility, growing smaller beneath them. "Tell them," he paused, mandibles clicking in distress. "Tell them we need to reconsider our approach to terror. These aren't just another species to bring into the Confederation. They're something else entirely." "They shouldn't be possible," muttered Admiral Doe as he reviewed the battle footage for the 5th time. His weathered face showed genuine concern, something his staff had never witnessed. The war room aboard the Confederation command vessel Righteous Fang fell silent as the holographic display replayed the disastrous first contact with humans. 20 of the Confederation's highest-ranking officers sat around the circular table, their diverse physiologies united in stunned disbelief. Some had exoskeletons that clicked nervously. Others breathed through gill slits that fluttered with agitation, but all eyes remained fixed on the display. The 3-dimensional footage showed Commander Tay's retreat from terror. The image zoomed in on a single human soldier who had absorbed enough energy weapon fire to drop a razorback war beast. Yet this creature, this impossible being, continued fighting with 3 limbs rendered essentially useless by Confederation weapons. "Freeze image," Admiral Doe commanded, his 4 arms resting heavily on the polished stone table. His species, the Vaughn, were known throughout the galaxy for their tactical genius and emotional control, yet the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "This is the 7th time we've reviewed this footage," said Vice Admiral Pack, her crystalline skin refracting, light across the chamber. "Perhaps we should accept that our intelligence on these humans was severely lacking." Scientific Officer Sun rose from her seat, her hovering chair descending silently to the floor. As the Confederation's leading xenobiologist, her opinion carried significant weight. She pointed a delicate 6-fingered hand toward the bio-readings displayed beside the frozen image of the human warrior. "I've spent 3 cycles analyzing their biology," Sun explained, her voice melodic yet troubled. "Their homeworld, this Earth, appears designed to kill. The gravity alone would crush most of our species. Their atmosphere contains corrosive elements. Their oceans are filled with acid. Their weather systems generate electrical discharges that could power our starships." She manipulated the controls, bringing up detailed anatomical scans of a human. "Look at this skeletal structure. Evolved to withstand impacts that would shatter our bones. Their muscle fibers can tear and repair themselves stronger than before. Their skin contains metallic compounds for radiation protection, but most concerning is their brain chemistry." The display shifted to neural scans that pulsed with activity. Most species across the galaxy evolved away from aggression as they developed technology. It's the natural path, cooperation over competition once basic survival needs are met. Humans followed a different path, They remained apex predators. Even as they advanced, their bodies produce chemicals during combat that suppress pain and increase strength. They call it adrenaline and endorphins, a biological combat enhancement system built into every one of them. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Fleet Captain Gill, a veteran of the border wars, raised a tentacle to speak. Are you suggesting these creatures evolved naturally? Could they be engineered weapons, perhaps created by the ancient ones? Sun shook her head, her cranial ridges flushing blue with professional certainty. These adaptations evolved over millions of years. No engineering, just a brutal homeworld that killed anything too weak to survive. Look at their medical records. We intercepted their data transmissions. They regularly survive injuries that would be fatal to any other known species. Their medical technology is primitive compared to ours, yet their recovery rates are astonishing. The display changed to show a human with an entire limb regrown through their medical technology. Another image showed a human with half their skull, replaced with synthetic materials, fully conscious and functional. Admiral Doe leaned forward, his aged exoskeleton creaking slightly. What about their technology? Surely they can't match our advancement. Technical Officer Yong stepped forward, his mechanical eye whirring as it focused. Their technology is unusual, Admiral. Less elegant than ours, but extraordinarily robust. Their spacecraft are primitive, but built to withstand conditions we'd never designed for. They use redundant systems where we use precision. Their weapons are less advanced, but designed for reliability under extreme conditions. They prioritize durability over efficiency. Yong brought up schematics of human weapons systems. Most concerning is their approach to warfare. They still train for combat without technology, as if expecting to lose it. Each soldier can fight with or without weapons. They have martial arts forms designed to continue fighting after sustaining injuries that would incapacitate any rational being. Admiral Doe nodded gravely, his secondary eyes blinking slowly. We're not fighting soldiers. We're fighting creatures shaped by millions of years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill them daily. And they won. The Admiral stood, towering over the gathered officers. For 300 cycles he had commanded the Confederation's military forces without a single major defeat. Now his voice carried the weight of a disturbing realization. Our standard protocols are useless here. These humans don't respond to shows of force. They don't surrender when outmatched. Our psychological warfare tactics assume rational opponents who value self-preservation. He gestured to the frozen image of the wounded human soldier, still fighting, despite catastrophic injuries. Look at this being. By any reasonable standard, it should retreat to seek medical attention. Instead, it advances while bleeding out. It uses its damaged limb as a weapon. It shows no fear response despite facing superior technology. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Commander Leck, recently arrived from the failed engagement, spoke up. There's something else, Admiral. Something the footage doesn't capture. When they fight, they make noises. Not communication, not warning calls. Almost like they enjoy the combat. My troops reported feeling primal fear just hearing them. Tactical Officer Juan activated a sound recording. The room filled with what could only be described as human battle cries. Guttural, primal sounds that sent shivers through even the most hardened veterans. Our psychological profile suggests this is not enjoyment, Scientific Officer Sun corrected. It's their bodies preparing for maximum exertion. They literally transform physiologically during combat. Admiral Doe returned to his seat, making a decision that would forever change Confederation military doctrine. We need to completely reassess our approach to these humans. No more small engagements. No more tests of their capabilities. Either we commit our full forces to contain this species now, or we negotiate terms while we still can. As the briefing ended, the veterans exchanged knowing glances across the table. They understood what the younger officers couldn't yet comprehend. Humans weren't just enemies, they were evolutionary nightmares. Creatures that had no right to exist by the normal rules of evolution, yet not only survived, but thrived in conditions that would kill most life forms. Outside in the corridor, Junior Officer He approached Commander June, confused by the tension in the war room. They're just another species, He said confidently. Our technology is centuries beyond theirs. Commander June, who had witnessed the humans firsthand, simply placed a hand on the younger officer's shoulder. "Pray you never have to face them," he said quietly. "Technology doesn't matter when your opponent simply refuses to die." "Why did you order retreat?" demanded the young Lieutenant Wu, facing his commander with barely contained fury. "We outnumbered them." The command bridge of the Confederation patrol vessel Swift Justice hummed with tension. The crew pretended to focus on their stations, but their extrasensory appendages were all oriented toward the confrontation. Lieutenant Wu stood rigidly at attention, his scales flushed bright orange with anger, four-fingered hands clenched at his sides. Commander Kang turned slowly from the view screen showing the distant human outpost. 8 battle medals adorned his chest, each representing conflicts where he had never retreated, until he encountered humans. "You haven't faced them yet," Kang replied quietly. "When you do, you'll understand." "We had 30 elite troops against 5 unarmored humans," Wu continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous hiss. "The Council will demand an explanation. Our mission was to secure that outpost." Kang's outer eyelids closed slowly, a sign of deep fatigue among his species. The fine network of scars across his face told the story of a warrior who had survived conflicts across 17 star systems. His right arm, a cybernetic replacement from mid-bicep, down, gleamed dully under the bridge lights. "Lieutenant Wu," he said evenly, "do you know how I lost this arm?" Wu hesitated, his anger momentarily derailed. "Border Wars, sir. Your service record mentions the Battle of Carrick's Moon." "No," Kang corrected. "My official record says that. The truth is, classified level 9. He gestured to the empty ready room off the bridge. "Walk with me." Once inside with the door sealed, Kang activated a personal holographic projector from his wrist unit. An image appeared, Kang in his previous command armor, both arms still flesh, standing with a squad of Confederation troops outside a damaged settlement. 6 cycles ago, before humans were widely known to us, my team investigated a distress signal from a research outpost on the edge of Sector 12. We found the facility damaged, with evidence of unknown attackers. The hologram shifted to interior footage. The lighting was poor, emergency systems only. We believed we were tracking pirates or perhaps void marauders. Instead, we found 3 humans who had stopped at the outpost for supplies. Wu's crest flattened with skepticism. 3 humans against your elite squad? 3 humans who didn't know we weren't the ones who had damaged the station, Kang continued. When they saw us, they assumed we were hostiles. The footage showed chaos, rapid movement, energy weapons fire, and the unmistakable sound of Confederation troops shouting in panic. The camera view from Kang's helmet spun wildly before stabilizing on a human moving with impossible speed in the low-gravity environment. Even wounded, the human fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible. "This one took my arm off," Kang said, freezing the image on a human female holding what appeared to be a makeshift weapon fashioned from station equipment. "Then she used my severed limb to disable the squad's heavy gunner." Wu's scales paled to a sickly yellow. "That's not possible. We lost 7 troops in under 3 minutes. Not injured, dead." Kang deactivated the hologram. "When we eventually established communication and they realized we weren't hostiles, they helped treat our wounded. The human who took my arm personally carried 2 of my injured soldiers to their ship for medical treatment. She apologized for the misunderstanding while bleeding from wounds that should have been fatal." Wu sank into a chair, his military bearing momentarily forgotten. "The Council classified the encounter," Kang continued. "Too demoralizing for the troops, but those of us who survived, we know, and we retreat when we recognize humans on the battlefield. Not from cowardice, Lieutenant, from wisdom born of survival." 2 cycles later, Lieutenant Wu's unit picked up unusual energy readings from a small monitoring outpost on the moon of Draken 4. Eager to redeem himself after the previous retreat, he convinced the mission commander to let him lead the recovery team. Their intelligence suggested pirates had seized the facility, a standard operation that would showcase his leadership abilities. The 6 dropships descended through the moon's thin atmosphere, deploying 60 Confederation soldiers in a textbook encirclement pattern. Wu led from the front, his combat armor freshly painted with his family sigils. "Remember, troops," he said over the tactical channel, "we expect minimal resistance. Standard pirate numbers are 12 to 15 hostiles, lightly armed." The perimeter sensors showed only 3 life forms inside the facility. Absurdly outnumbered, this would be over quickly. The first hint that something was wrong came when their technology dampeners failed to disable the outpost systems. The second came when the facility's external defenses, which should have been easily overwhelmed, remained operational. "Breach team, go!" Wu ordered, frustrated by the delay. The armored door blew inward, and Wu led his squad through the smoke. The lighting inside shifted to red emergency mode, casting everything in blood-colored shadows. "Contact!" shouted his point guard, weapon raised. Through the swirling smoke stepped a figure Wu initially mistook for a maintenance droid, but it was a human in some kind of mechanical exoframe. Behind this human stood 2 others, wearing what appeared to be simple fabric clothing with minimal armor plates. "Confederation forces," the lead human called out, voice distorted by a breathing apparatus. "This facility is under Terran Alliance protection. Withdraw immediately." Wu felt a moment of triumph. Just 3 humans, as the sensors had indicated. His troops had them surrounded 20 to 1. "Surrender now," Wu countered, "and you'll be treated according to Confederation protocols for prisoners." The humans exchanged glances. Then the lead one shrugged and reached for something at their belt. "Combat stimulants?" warned the Confederation sensor operator too late. Wu watched in disbelief as the humans injected themselves with auto-syringes. Their vital signs on his HUD display spiked dramatically. Increased heart rate, heightened neural activity, and, strangest of all, a change in their thermal signatures as their body temperatures rose. What happened next would replay in Wu's nightmares for years. The humans moved with unnatural speed, even in their protective gear. The first dropped into a crouch and opened fire with precision that shouldn't have been possible under combat conditions. 3 Confederation soldiers fell before anyone could return fire. When the Confederation forces did respond, their energy weapons struck true, but the humans continued fighting despite critical injuries. One took a direct hit to the torso, a wound that should have been instantly incapacitating. Instead, the human rolled with the impact, came up firing, and eliminated 4 more soldiers. "Fall back to defensive positions," Wu ordered, his training taking over where his courage failed. The second human charged directly into their heaviest concentration of troops, moving so quickly that the soldiers' targeting systems couldn't track effectively. This human fought hand-to-hand, despite the Confederation's superior numbers, using their environment with a tactical awareness that bordered on precognition. Wu watched in horror as his forces were systematically decimated with brutal efficiency. These weren't just good fighters. They moved like they'd evolved specifically for combat, reading the battlefield with impossible clarity. "Retreat, full retreat," Wu finally ordered, understanding at last what Commander Kang had tried to tell him. As his surviving troops scrambled back to their ships, Wu found himself cut off, face to face with the 3rd human. This one had taken multiple hits, with one arm hanging uselessly at their side and blood soaking through their clothing. Yet their eyes remained focused, determined, showing no sign of pain or fear. "You're beaten," the human said simply. "Leave." They stepped aside, allowing Wu to escape. Not from mercy, he realized later, but from tactical calculation. The human knew pursuing retreating forces would cost more than it gained. When Wu's shuttle rejoined the main vessel, Commander Kang was waiting in the docking bay. No reprimand came, no "I told you so." Instead, the veteran commander simply nodded in understanding. The legend continued spreading through Confederation space. Veteran warriors run when Deathworlders set foot on the battlefield. Not from cowardice, but from wisdom born of survival. Lieutenant Wu, once skeptical, became one of its most fervent believers, bearing the scars to prove his newfound respect for the creatures from Terra. Commander Tay sought redemption. The chaos, memory of his first defeat at human hands, had haunted him through sleepless cycles. His career, once destined for the highest echelons of Confederation leadership, now hung by a thread. Only a decisive victory against these Deathworlders could restore his honor. The massive Confederation battleship, unyielding mandate, dropped out of hyperspace near Proxima Centauri, its angular silhouette blotting out the distant stars. Behind, it emerged 20 support vessels, their weapon systems already powering up. The fleet carried over 6,000 elite troops, 20 Confederation soldiers for every human defender reported on Proxima Station. On the command deck, Tay studied the holographic representation of their target. The station orbited a barren planet, its modular design suggesting it had been expanded several times as the human presence in this system grew. Intelligence indicated it housed only 300 human personnel, primarily scientists and engineers, with a small security detail. "This time, we come with overwhelming force," Tay told his assembled officers. His new ceremonial armor gleamed under the blue light of the tactical displays, hiding the scars from his previous encounter. "The High Command has authorized all necessary measures to secure this strategic position." Officer Gill, recently transferred from Admiral Doe's command, raised a tentative hand. "Commander, with respect, perhaps we should consider diplomatic approaches." "These humans have shown—" "Your concerns are noted," Tay interrupted sharply. "But the humans have rejected all diplomatic overtures. This station sits at a critical junction point for 7 hyperspace lanes. It cannot remain under their control." He gestured to the tactical display, highlighting their carefully planned assault vectors. "We will deploy simultaneously from multiple directions. Our forces will breach at 16 separate entry points. Victory is assured," he told his nervous officers. The humans cannot withstand these numbers. Yet despite his confident words, Tay noticed the veterans among his crew exchanging uneasy glances. Several had encountered humans before. Their apprehension was palpable, hanging in the recycled air like an invisible toxin. 3 hours later, the assault began. Tay watched from the command ship as the first wave of drop pods streaked toward the station. Point defense weapons fired. From the station, destroying several pods, but most punched through to their designated landing zones. "Breaching teams in position," reported Communications Officer Naeem, her scaled fingers dancing across the control interfaces. "First explosives placed." Tay nodded approvingly. "Begin the synchronized breach." The first explosion tore through the station's outer hull in a silent flash of light, followed by similar breaches across the structure's circumference. Atmosphere vented into space in glittering clouds of ice crystals. Through helmet cameras, Tay watched his troops pour into the station through the breaches. Then something unexpected happened. Multiple veteran officers on the ground immediately ordered withdrawal against direct commands, their voices overlapping on the tactical channel. "All units fall back," shouted Captain Hyun, a decorated soldier with 15 years of combat experience. His helmet camera showed him physically pulling younger troops back toward the breach point. "Belay that order," Tay commanded, fury rising in his throat. "Continue the advance." "You don't understand what's coming," the battle-scarred captain, Hyun told the confused younger officers, ignoring Tay's command entirely. "Look at the internal pressure readings. They're not trying to seal the breaches." Tay checked the environmental data stream with growing confusion. Indeed, the humans had made no attempt to activate emergency bulkhead seals. The compartments beyond the breach points remained deliberately open to vacuum. "They're letting us in," whispered Officer Naeem, her usual professional tone faltering. "Just like at Arcturus Prime, just like at—" She fell silent as the station's interior hatches cycled open on the tactical display. Tay felt his blood run cold. Moments later, the station's interior hatches opened. From them emerged not the panicked scientists and engineers they expected, but human shock troops. Their combat gear stunned even Tay. They wore minimal armor, for maximum mobility, seemingly unconcerned with the exposure to vacuum in some sections. Breather masks covered the lower half of their faces, but their eyes remained visible, reflecting an eerie calmness that veterans recognized immediately. The focused predatory stare of creatures evolved to hunt and kill. "How are they moving so fast in zero-G?" demanded one of Tay's junior officers as they watched the helmet feeds. "They're not using standard maneuvering thrusters," a veteran security officer answered grimly. "They train for this. They're military. History includes entire divisions specialized for zero-gravity combat. They call them void dancers. What followed became legendary throughout Confederation space. The humans used strategies incomprehensible to Confederation tacticians. Instead of taking defensive positions, they launched themselves straight at the invaders, using the station's structure to ricochet and change direction in ways that made targeting them nearly impossible. Most disturbing, they deliberately took damage to create openings. One human allowed themselves to be shot in the side, the impact spinning them in zero gravity, which they used to bring their weapon to bear on 3 Confederation soldiers who couldn't react quickly enough. "They're using their own injured bodies as bait," reported a horrified squad leader. His camera showed a seemingly disabled human floating motionless until Confederation troops approached, at which point the human suddenly activated hidden thrusters and eliminated the entire squad. The station's irregular gravity field should have favored the Confederation troops, whose power armor was designed to compensate for gravitational shifts. Yet the humans moved with uncanny speed, despite Proxima's higher gravity zones. Their muscles evolved on a world that constantly tried to crush them. In section after section, Tay watched his carefully planned assault collapse into chaos. The humans had modified the station itself as a weapon, cutting power to gravity plating without warning, venting specific compartments to space when filled with Confederation troops, and altering lighting patterns to disorient invaders. "Second wave, deploy immediately," Tay ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "All remaining troops converge on the central hub." But the second wave found no better fortune than the first. The humans had adapted to their tactics even as the battle raged, setting ambushes where reinforcements were most likely to arrive. 6 hours into what should have been a 2-hour operation, Tay faced the unthinkable. More than 4,000 Confederation troops had been killed or incapacitated. The remaining forces were scattered, communications disrupted by the humans' electronic warfare. "Commander," Officer Naeem said quietly, "we've lost contact with Captain Hyun's remaining forces. Central Hub is reported lost. The humans have control of the station's core systems." As if confirming her words, the main view screen activated, showing a transmission from inside the station. A human commander stood among the bodies of Confederation soldiers, helmet removed despite the danger. Blood, shockingly red, streaked one side of their face. "Confederation vessel," the human said calmly. "Your boarding action has failed. Withdraw your remaining forces or we will be forced to eliminate them." Tay stared at the screen, unable to comprehend how his overwhelming advantage had turned to ashes. The defeat was total, more humiliating than his first encounter with the Deathworlders. "Recall all troops," he finally ordered, his voice hollow. "Prepare emergency extraction protocols." As the battered remnants of his force retreated to extraction points, Tay received one final transmission from Captain Hyun, who had somehow survived. "Next time, Commander," the veteran said, his voice weak but clear. "When the experienced officers tell you to run from humans, perhaps you'll listen." Commander Tay barely escaped with his life, finally understanding what the veterans had tried to tell him. These weren't just soldiers from a high-gravity world. They were something their evolution had shaped into perfect survivors. Beings who treated injuries as temporary inconveniences and impossible odds as interesting challenges. As his ship limped away from Proxima Station, Tay deleted the speech he had prepared for after his victory. In its place, he began writing a new Confederation military doctrine, one that began with a simple principle. When Deathworlders set foot on the battlefield, only fools stand their ground. The peace negotiations were tense. The neutral space, Station Harmony Sphere, orbited the gas giant Calyx 4, its transparent dome offering spectacular views of swirling violet clouds below. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 17 species sat in tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle. At the center stood 2 delegation tables, one for the Confederation, one for the humans. Admiral Doe represented the Confederation, his forearms folded formally across his ceremonial armor. The scars on his exoskeleton told the story of his 300-cycle military career. Behind him sat the collected representatives of the Confederation's ruling species, the crystalline Lux, the amphibious Meru, the insectoid Kirik, and others less recognizable to human eyes. Across from them, General Park led the human delegation. Unlike the ornately armored Confederation representatives, the humans wore simple, dark uniforms with minimal decorations. Their comparative physical frailty seemed absurd in this context. No exoskeletons, no protective adaptations visible to the eye, nothing to suggest the reputation that now haunted Confederation military forces. The Terran Alliance cannot accept these terms, General Park stated flatly, setting down the data tablet containing the Confederation's proposed treaty. Your security corridor requirements would cut off our colony on Epsilon Indi. Admiral Doe's secondary eyes blinked with irritation. The corridor is non-negotiable. Your species has demonstrated unpredictable aggression patterns. We require strategic depth. Unpredictable? Park's eyebrows rose slightly. We defended ourselves against unprovoked attacks. That's hardly unpredictable. The translation systems worked flawlessly, but some concepts simply didn't translate across species boundaries. The humans' definition of defense included counterattacks that the Confederation considered new aggressions. Their concept of proportional response seemed to have no upper limit. Around the chamber, environmental systems worked overtime to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the gathered species. For the methane-breathing Vorith delegation, special atmospheric chambers had been constructed. The aquatic Meru representatives floated in sealed water tanks fitted with translation devices. Perhaps we should recess, suggested Diplomat Mun, a Confederation moderator, whose species specialized in conflict resolution. These issues are complex, and a sudden movement at the chamber's upper level caught everyone's attention. A maintenance panel swung open, and a figure in maintenance coveralls dropped to the chamber floor. Before anyone could react, the intruder pulled out a small device and pointed it at the human delegation. "For Arcturus," the assassin shouted, activating the device. What happened next unfolded with such speed that many delegates' recording devices couldn't capture it clearly. The human security team's protective response triggered instantly, moving as a single, coordinated unit. 2 guards tackled General Park to the ground, while 3 others converged on the attacker. The would-be assassin managed to deploy their weapon, a sonic disruptor tuned to human neural frequencies, before being overwhelmed. The painful sound wave swept through the chamber, causing the humans to wince but not stop. The Confederation diplomats watched in stunned silence as the humans continued moving with terrifying efficiency to neutralize the threat, continuing despite injuries that should have been debilitating. One security officer, blood streaming from his ears from the sonic attack, maintained his grip on the assassin. Another, clearly suffering from the disruptor's effects, methodically disabled the weapon with precise movements. Within 12 seconds, the situation was contained. The assassin, a Kirik extremist whose hive had been destroyed in one of the human counterattacks, lay restrained on the chamber floor. The human security team, despite bleeding from ears and noses, maintained perfect formation around their delegation. "Are you injured, Admiral?" General Park asked calmly, straightening his uniform as he returned to his seat. Blood trickled from his right ear, but he showed no sign of discomfort. Admiral Doe stared in disbelief. The sonic disruptor should have completely incapacitated any human within its range. Yet here they stood, bleeding but functional, more concerned with others' safety than their own injuries. "I am unharmed," the Admiral replied slowly. "Your people require medical attention." Park shook his head slightly. "Minor injuries, we can continue." The chamber remained silent, every alien representative processing what they had witnessed. The casual dismissal of injuries, the immediate protection of others, including potential enemies, the sheer impossibility of remaining functional after a neural disruptor attack. "Now you understand," General Park said calmly after order was restored, and security teams from both delegations had removed the assassin. "But there's something you misunderstand about us." He waited for the translation systems to catch up, ensuring every species present could comprehend his words. "You've labeled us as aggressive, as predators, as dangers to galactic peace. Your military records call us Deathworlders and evolutionary nightmares." A small smile touched Park's lips. "We've intercepted your communications too." The human general stood, moving to the center of the chamber where holographic displays could be accessed. He activated the system, bringing up images of Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. This is our homeworld. Yes, it's classified as a death world by your standards. Higher gravity, corrosive atmosphere, extreme weather, dangerous predators. But it's also this. The images shifted to show humans building shelters for other humans after natural disasters, medical personnel treating injured children, people forming human chains to rescue others from floodwaters. Our species didn't particularly enjoy violence. We simply evolved exceptional capability for it, Park explained. The same traits that make us formidable opponents also make us uniquely capable protectors. Our true strength isn't our physical resilience or combat abilities. It's our adaptability and willingness to protect others at personal cost. More images appeared, human history, showing how adaptations for survival had been redirected toward cooperation, protection of the vulnerable, and eventually reaching for the stars. We endured evolutionary pressure that created these abilities, Park continued, but we choose how to use them. Yes, we fight ferociously when threatened, but what truly defines us is our capacity to endure hardship for the sake of others. Admiral Doe rose slowly, his perspective shifting as he processed the human's words. You are suggesting that the very traits we fear are not primarily evolved for aggression? Precisely, Park nodded. The same human who can fight through injuries that should be fatal can also work tirelessly to save strangers. The same determination that makes us continue fighting when outmatched lets us persist in finding cures for diseases or solutions to environmental challenges. The peace negotiations took a different turn that day. Not immediate friendship. Too much blood had been spilled for that, but the beginning of understanding. The final treaty established buffer zones and communication protocols, but also created joint humanitarian projects where human resilience and Confederation technology could complement each other. 10 years later, Commander Tay stood before a classroom of fresh recruits at the Confederation Military Academy. His once distinguished career had been salvaged after the Proxima disaster, redirected toward preparing the next generation of officers. The scars from his encounters with humans remained visible on his face and neck. When you see humans on the battlefield, feel appropriate fear, he told the attentive cadets, pointing to the holographic display showing human military capabilities. But remember that they endured evolutionary hell and emerged not as conquerors, but as the galaxy's most determined protectors. They fight not because they love violence, but because they survived a world that taught them the cost of failure. He switched the display to footage from the Great Calyx disaster, where human emergency teams worked alongside Confederation forces to evacuate civilians from a collapsing space station. This is why veteran warriors now understand we retreated not just from the human's capacity for violence, but from the unbreakable will of creatures who refuse to surrender no matter the odds. A will that, thankfully, they've largely turned toward protection rather than conquest. A young cadet raised a tentacle. Is it true you fought humans directly, Commander? Tay nodded grimly. 3 times. I bear the scars from each encounter, but I've also worked with them during the Rigel humanitarian crisis. The same human who nearly killed me during the Proxima siege later pulled me from wreckage during the evacuation, risking their life for someone who had once been an enemy. He gestured to the observation window, where a human exchange officer could be seen instructing Confederation troops in hand-to-hand combat techniques. Learn from them, respect them, and be grateful they choose to be defenders rather than conquerors. Because the galaxy would look very different if creatures evolved on a death world had emerged with conquest in their hearts. The veteran warriors throughout Confederation space now understood what Admiral Doe had encoded into the peace treaty. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their resilience or fighting prowess, but their capacity to endure suffering for a cause greater than themselves. The end.